Visualize that the bones of a huge saber-toothed baboon are buried under layers of old ice and stone. This baboon used to hunt early humans, steal leopards' kills, and even throw its enemies off hills. This isn't a monster from a movie, it's Dinopithecus, a real-life nightmare that lived in the mountains of Africa a long time ago. Fossils show that it wasn't just strong, it was also smart, moving in groups to corner its prey and leaving behind bone-strewn caves that look like old crime scenes. If you thought that people were always the best hunters, this story will change your mind. Meet Dinopithecus, the 6-foot baboon with saber teeth. Think of a baboon that is about the size of a grown man, stands about 6 feet tall when standing up, and has teeth that are so long and sharp that they've been compared to swords. During the Pleistocene, that was Dinopithecus, a huge monkey that lived in southern Africa. Based on fossils, these apes may have been as heavy as 250 pounds, which is bigger than most male leopards today. Their bodies were made like tanks, with strong chests, thick limbs, and jaws that could break bones. When early humans came across them, they would have seen a monster that looked both familiar and scary. The first time paleontologists pieced together a Dinopithecus skull, they were shocked by the size of its teeth. Its canines, especially in males, were as long as a small leopard's fangs. Unlike modern baboons, which mostly use their long teeth for intimidation, Dinopithecus's canines show heavy wear patterns, suggesting they were used repeatedly in actual combat, not just for show. The jaw muscles were huge, anchored by thick ridges on the skull, giving it a bite strong enough to break bones or crush through thick animal hides. Their body size alone would have been intimidating to anything in their territory. Standing on all fours, Dinopithecus would have reached a human adult's waist, but when they reared up to threaten or attack, they were eye level with early humans. Fossilized limb bones show thick muscle attachments, meaning they were not just big, they were extremely strong, capable of tackling prey or fighting off predators. Their appearance was likely similar to modern chacma baboons, but bulkier, with a thicker neck and longer arms. Some scientists believe Dinopithecus may have had longer fur than modern baboons, adapted to the cooler highland climates of South Africa, where most fossils are found. This would have given them a shaggy, almost bear-like look, making them even more terrifying to early humans. The place where they lived made them even stronger. Dinopithecus lived in rocky highlands and open meadows. These places had lots of grazing animals like antelope, which were early humans' favorite foods. Sharing these hunting and gathering grounds with hominins meant that they would inevitably meet and possibly fight with them. For early humans and smaller animals, seeing a group of Dinopithecus coming would have been enough to make them run away. The part of Dinopithecus's head that looks most like a big cat rather than a primate is one of its strangest features. The eye sockets that face forward suggest that the animal has good depth awareness, which makes it great for stalking or judging distances during attacks. Compared to modern monkeys, which have shorter, flatter faces, this one had a longer muzzle that made it look more like a hunter. With its sharp teeth, it looked more like a mix between a baboon and a cat than a harmless monkey that ate grass. The fossil size differences between males and females also suggest that males were much larger, possibly using their size to dominate troops or fight rivals. This means early humans would have been more likely to encounter huge, aggressive males defending territory. Fossils of fractured male skulls show healed bite marks, proof that they fought each other violently, behavior that could easily spill over into attacks on anything that crossed their path. Despite their size, Dinopithecus had long, muscular legs and flexible joints, meaning they could run and climb better than modern baboons. If an early human or a smaller animal tried to escape up a rocky slope or into a tree, a Dinopithecus might have been able to follow. Even today, modern baboons can sprint faster than most humans, and Dinopithecus was larger and likely more powerful. Finding remains of their hands and feet adds to this idea that they were predators. They had long, bent fingers that were great for pulling or grabbing. Some paleontologists think they might have been able to hold their fighting prey while delivering a fatal bite. This is similar to how baboons sometimes hunt small animals. They also had feet that were designed to grip rocky ground, which made them dangerous ambush hunters in steep highland areas. For early humans, facing such a creature would have been terrifying. Imagine gathering plants or hunting small game, only to hear the scream-like calls of a Dinopithecus troop approaching. Modern baboons can already be aggressive when defending food or territory, but a 6-foot version with dagger teeth would have been far worse. Their size alone meant that even adult humans might have been seen as competition or even prey. Predator, scavenger, or both, what Dinopithecus ate. What did the Dinopithecus actually eat? Did it stalk early humans and antelopes as a bloodthirsty hunter, or did it mostly steal kills from other animals? Fossil evidence points to an answer that is somewhere in the middle. It shows a giant ape that was very flexible and quick to take advantage of opportunities. Modern baboons eat a variety of plants and animals, but Dinopithecus may have been much more violent in what it ate. It may have been a dangerous mix of hunter, scavenger, and bone crusher. The clearest evidence of its diet comes from tooth wear and bite marks on bones. Fossilized jaws of Dinopithecus show heavy enamel scratches and chipping, similar to hyenas and other bone-eating animals. Modern baboons rarely crack bones open for marrow, but Dinopithecus had teeth strong enough to do exactly that. This tells us it wasn't just eating soft plants or fruits. It regularly bit into hard material, whether to access nutrient-rich marrow or to strip meat from thick animal bones. In Sterkfontein caves, where many Dinopithecus fossils were discovered, bones of antelope, monkeys, and even small hominins have been found with distinctive puncture marks. These marks match the spacing of Dinopithecus canines, and some bones show crushing damage consistent with powerful jaws clamping down to break them. While some scientists argue these could be scavenging incidents, the way some bones are splintered suggests fresh kills rather than just cleaning up carcasses. Dinopithecus wasn't a full-time predator like a leopard. Its teeth, while powerful, were still shaped for an omnivorous diet. Fossilized molars show wear patterns typical of animals that chew fibrous plants and tough seeds, much like modern baboons. It likely spent much of its time eating grasses, tubers, fruits and roots, foods abundant in the South African highlands. But when meat was available, it wouldn't hesitate to eat it, whether by hunting small animals or stealing from other predators. Piles of bones in the Makapansgat and Sterkfontein caves show that animals were scavenging. A lot of animal bones look like they were dragged into caves and chewed on, which is similar to what baboons do when they need to eat in a safe place. Some bones even have bite marks over older tooth grooves, which suggests that Dinopithecus went back to dead animals more than once to get any food it could after other animals had eaten it. This habit of scavenging may have been very important during hard times when plants didn't have much food. So, how much hunting did it actually do? Modern baboons occasionally hunt small animals, raiding nests for eggs or even catching baby antelopes. Scale that behavior up to a 250-pound Dinopithecus, and the possibilities become terrifying. Its long limbs and strong hands would have allowed it to grab and pin struggling animals, while its sharp canines delivered lethal bites to the neck or skull. Fossils of small antelopes found near Dinopithecus sites have bite damage on the back of the skull, a kill method similar to how big cats dispatch their prey. Hominin bones are one of the most controversial pieces of proof. In some caves in South Africa, the bones of early humans related to Paranthropus show tooth marks that match the spacing of teeth from Dinopithecus. Were these early people actively hunted, or did they just look for food after they died? It's hard to say for sure, but the fact that Dinopithecus teeth left marks on the bones of our ancestors suggests that they may have eaten them sometimes, either as prey that they hunted or as meals when they were hungry. The shape of its jaws and bite force also hints at how it fed. Dinopithecus had a short, broad snout with massive jaw muscles, capable of exerting crushing pressure similar to that of a leopard. This means it could process tough meat and crack bones, a skill crucial for surviving in the highly competitive Ice Age ecosystems, where scavenging every calorie mattered. Its ability to eat both plants and meat gave it a major survival advantage, making it one of the most versatile feeders of its time. This mixed diet idea is supported by isotope studies of fossilized Dinopithecus teeth. Chemical traces show patterns that are similar to both vegetarians and carnivores, which shows that it regularly switched between meals high in plants and meat depending on what was available. It probably mostly ate plants when it was raining, and it would have scavenged or hunted to stay alive when it was dry. Modern baboons show us how they act in this way. It is known that the troops of today kill goats, raid fields, and steal from animals that eat animals when food is scarce. Dinopithecus would have been much braver because it was bigger and stronger. It might have scared off smaller animals that were after its kills or swarmed the bodies in groups like hyenas do. This adaptable food may help explain why it did so well for so long, living in the same areas as leopards, hyenas, and early humans, even though they were competitors. The day Homo met beast, early human encounters. As an early person with only stone tools, imagine facing a 6-foot-tall baboon that is built like a predator. In southern Africa, where fossils show that Dinopithecus and early hominins lived together, that's how things were for some of our ancestors. It wasn't just a one-time thing. People and these giant baboons shared watering holes, hunting grounds, and sometimes caves, which led to dangerous interactions that probably ended in death. Fossil evidence from Makapansgat and Sterkfontein caves in South Africa shows a disturbing overlap of early hominin and Dinopithecus remains. In some layers, bones of Paranthropus robustus and Australopithecus africanus, two early human relatives, are mixed with Dinopithecus teeth and bones. Several hominin skull fragments found in these caves have puncture marks matching Dinopithecus canine spacing, suggesting direct attacks. Some of these skulls show crushing injuries to the back of the head, similar to how modern baboons kill monkeys or small antelopes. These encounters weren't random. Early humans and Dinopithecus competed for the same resources. The highland regions of South Africa offered fertile grounds with edible plants, roots, and access to water, but they also created natural choke points where different species gathered. Fossilized footprints near riverbeds show hominins and large primates moving through the same trails, which means accidental encounters were inevitable. And with Dinopithecus's aggressive behavior, those encounters could turn deadly. The size difference made these meetings especially dangerous. Dinopithecus males could weigh over 250 pounds, far heavier than early humans, and their strength was unmatched. Modern baboons can tear apart dogs and seriously injure adult humans with their bite. Dinopithecus was bigger, faster, and stronger. Fossilized human arm bones from Makapansgat show spiral fractures consistent with being twisted or yanked violently, something a large primate could do easily. But early humans weren't entirely helpless. Fossils of Dinopithecus and stone tools found nearby show that hominins sometimes fought back. A leg bone from a Dinopithecus was found at Sterkfontein with a sharp cut mark on it. This cut mark could have been made by a stone knife or axe. This doesn't show that they were actively hunting, but it could mean that people defended themselves or ate baboons that had been killed by other animals. Still, the fact that many human bones have injuries and not as many Dinopithecus bones does says that humans usually lost these fights. The way teeth wear down on hominid fossils is one of the most interesting pieces of evidence. Some early humans have stress lines that show they had to hunt at different times of the day, maybe to escape Dinopithecus troops during peak hunting times. This is similar to how modern primates change their routines to stay away from dominant predators in areas where they live with others. The caves themselves may have been both refuge and trap. Early humans often used caves for shelter, but Dinopithecus is believed to have used the same caves as feeding or sleeping sites. In Makapansgat, piles of mixed animal bones and Dinopithecus teeth were found deep inside cave chambers, suggesting these baboons dragged prey, possibly including humans, into these sheltered areas. Some researchers theorize that early humans who entered these caves may have been ambushed, especially if Dinopithecus returned to defend its food caches. Living close to these huge baboons must have had a huge effect on their mental and emotional health. Leopards and hyenas were already a threat to early humans, but Dinopithecus was even more dangerous because it was smart, fast, and could attack in an organized way. Baboons today are known to attack people for food or when they feel threatened, and a group of Dinopithecus would have been even more daring. There are signs that early humans may have developed strategies specifically to avoid them. Some human fossils in these regions are found in higher rocky shelters rather than open caves, possibly to stay out of reach. Stone tools from these areas are often clustered in groups, suggesting humans traveled in numbers, a common tactic for defense against large predators. A particularly scary fossil is a piece of a juvenile hominin skeleton that has bite marks on the femur and head. The child's bruises suggest that it was attacked, killed, and maybe even eaten. Dinopithecus is one of the few primates known to have eaten early humans. It's still not clear how regular or rare these attacks were, but the facts show they did happen, and they had a big effect on our ancestors. Nightmare in the Highlands, Dinopithecus, and the cradle of humankind. People today honor the Rocky Mountains of South Africa, which are often called the cradle of humankind, as the place where early human evolution began. But tens of thousands of years ago, these same highlands were home to the giant baboon Dinopithecus, a dangerous animal that made them a bad place to kill. Fossils found at important sites like Makapansgat, Sterkfontein, and Swartkrans paint a clear picture of how these huge apes ruled the cliffs, caves, and grasslands, often at the cost of our ancestors who lived in those areas. The landscape itself favored Dinopithecus. The region was a mix of steep rocky slopes, scattered woodlands, and open grass plains, perfect for ambush predators. The high cliffs gave Dinopithecus natural vantage points, and its climbing skills meant it could scale rocky walls with ease. Fossilized foot and hand bones show curved fingers and strong muscle attachments, ideal for gripping rocky surfaces and moving swiftly along ledges. For early humans like Australopithecus, Africanus, and Paranthropus robustus, this meant the highlands weren't just a challenge to climb. They were deadly hunting grounds controlled by a far stronger and more aggressive primate. Cave systems in these highlands tell much of the story. Sterkfontein Cave, one of the most famous fossil sites in the world, contains remains of both hominins and Dinopithecus, often in the same layers. Animal bones found in deeper chambers are fractured and scored with teeth marks consistent with Dinopithecus canines. Some bones were dragged into crevices, a behavior modern baboons display when feeding in groups. Researchers believe Dinopithecus used certain caves as feeding or sleeping dens, creating zones that early humans may have avoided entirely for fear of ambush. The highlands weren't just for resting, they were hunting grounds. Dinopithecus's size and strength made it a dominant predator in these elevated areas. Fossilized remains of small antelopes, monkeys, and even juvenile hominins in Makapansgat Cave show bite and crush patterns, suggesting they were attacked, killed, and consumed. Unlike leopards, which stalked prey silently, Dinopithecus may have used troop-based hunting, cornering animals against cliffs or into caves where escape was nearly impossible. For early humans, living near Dinopithecus meant constant danger. Paranthropus fossils found in Makapansgat show skull fractures and puncture wounds consistent with a strong primate bite. One particular skull, known as the Tong child, though debated, has long been suspected to have been killed by a large primate, possibly a Dinopithecus ancestor. Whether or not this specific case is true, similar injuries on other fossils confirm that these giant baboons occasionally targeted humans or scavenged their remains. The cradle of humankind, despite being rich in food resources, was likely a contested zone. Dinopithecus was an opportunist, competing with leopards, hyenas, and humans for food. Its size gave it an advantage in fights over carcasses, and its troop behavior meant even large predators might back off when faced with multiple giant baboons working together. Early humans, armed only with simple stone tools, would have been no match for an aggressive troop defending a kill or territory. The highlands' geography also trapped early humans in dangerous ways. Narrow cliff paths and enclosed caves created choke points. Fossilized footprints in swartkrans suggest humans often moved in groups, likely for safety. But even then, ambushes were possible. Dinopithecus's climbing ability meant no place was entirely safe. Even rocky ledges humans used for shelter could be reached by determined baboons. There is some proof that early humans tried to stay away from areas where Dinopithecus lived. Hominin fossils are more common in open fields or higher ridges at some fossil sites, while Dinopithecus fossils are more common near caves with lots of water and lower cliffs. The way these giant apes were spread out suggests that people chose to stay away from areas where they were common, even if those areas had better access to water or food plants. It must have had a huge effect on the minds of early people. Baboons today are known to break into camps, steal food, and fight when they feel threatened. When you think about that behavior happening around a 250-pound alpha male with saber-like teeth, it's easy to see why early humans might have learned how to defend themselves in groups and be more careful around caves and hills. Some anthropologists even say that the danger of Dinopithecus and other predators may have pushed early humans to get better at making tools, since they would have needed better weapons to stay alive. Baboons as killers. What modern behavior tells us about Dinopithecus? We don't have to only think about the remains of Dinopithecus to understand how dangerous it really was. We can also think about baboons today. Even though baboons today are smaller, they are already known for being mean. They break into groups of people, kill animals, and even attack kids. Imagine that behavior happening around a 6-foot-tall, 250-pound animal with teeth that look like sabers. It must have been very scary. Modern chacma baboons in southern Africa provide the closest comparison. These baboons are highly intelligent, opportunistic, and not afraid to challenge larger animals when in groups. They have been seen ambushing antelope, ripping apart goats, and even killing young leopards. Videos and field reports show baboons biting deeply into prey necks, often killing with precision. Fossil evidence of Dinopithecus shows similarly shaped canines, only far larger, meaning it could have delivered even deadlier bites. Coordinated attack is a behavior that stands out in the modern world. Baboons work together in groups to keep people or other animals busy while the top males steal food. Imagine if this strategy was used by a group of Dinopithecus. They could have used it to scare smaller predators away from kills, circle early humans, or even surprise prey animals by blocking their escape routes. Because of their size and intelligence, they would have been one of the best opportunistic hunters in the mountains. Modern baboons also show territorial aggression. Alpha males patrol troop boundaries and attack anything they perceive as a threat, sometimes chasing leopards or jackals for miles. Dinopithecus males, twice the size of modern baboons, would have been even more confident. Early humans entering a Dinopithecus troop's feeding zone may have been treated not just as competition, but as intruders to be driven off or killed. A further significant insight comes from the fact that baboons today are violent toward their own kind. It is known that baboons fight very badly, biting and pulling at their opponents. When male baboons take over a troop, they sometimes kill babies to get the females to start breeding again. Dinopithecus fossils with healed bite marks show that they also fought very badly with each other. This means that a person caught in the middle of a group fight would have been in great danger of being attacked. Modern baboons also show predatory behavior toward other primates. Chacma baboons have been documented hunting vervet monkeys, grabbing them from trees, and eating them alive. This is critical because it shows that baboons don't view other primates as off-limits. Fossils of early hominin bones with Dinopithecus bite marks strongly suggest the giant baboons treated humans just like any other prey, a food source if the opportunity arose. Baboon attacks on human settlements are one of the most dreadful things that happen nowadays. Baboons break into villages in some parts of Africa and steal food and sometimes fight people. People say that baboons have killed chickens, bit children, and torn small goats apart. When food was scarce, Dinopithecus, which was much bigger and stronger, probably broke into early human camps. Dinopithecus fossils were found near stone tools and food scraps that show the animals may have followed people and scavenged or stole kills when they could. Modern baboons also have a habit of throwing objects, rocks, sticks, or dirt, when threatened. They don't use tools as weapons in a planned way, but their ability to hurl objects shows surprising intelligence and problem-solving skills. If Dinopithecus shared this behavior, a troop defending its territory could have used intimidation tactics that were terrifying for early humans. There's also evidence of planned ambushes in modern troops. Some baboons use distraction tactics, with one group drawing attention while others circle around. Dinopithecus, being larger and possibly more intelligent, may have used similar tactics to corner prey or intimidate intruders. The psychological effect on early humans cannot be overstated. Today, even modern baboons frighten armed farmers, forcing them to guard crops constantly. Early humans had only stone tools, making them far more vulnerable. A charging Dinopithecus troop with males roaring and baring dagger-like teeth would have been almost impossible to stand against. The brain. Behind the brawn, was Dinopithecus intelligent? Even though a huge ape with sharp teeth is scary, the brain of the Dinopithecus may have been what really made it dangerous, not its size or strength. Recent research on fossil skulls and comparisons with current primates show that Dinopithecus wasn't just a mean animal. It might have been smart enough to plan ambushes, work with its group, and even use things in ways that were more like human intelligence than we thought possible. Fossilized skulls from Sterkfontein and Makapansgat show that Dinopithecus had a cranial capacity larger than modern baboons of similar body size. Endocranial casts, impressions of the brain from inside fossil skulls, suggest a well-developed frontal lobe region, the part of the brain linked to problem-solving and decision-making. While it wasn't anywhere near human intelligence, it likely had better spatial awareness and planning abilities than most other predators in its environment. Modern baboons already show surprising intelligence, such as remembering safe routes, identifying human weaknesses, and organizing complex raids on farms. Dinopithecus, being bigger and possibly more social, may have taken this to another level. Its intelligence likely allowed it to track prey movements, remember migration patterns of antelope, and identify waterholes where animals and humans gathered. The way teeth wear down over time is one ancient clue that points to higher intelligence. Some scientists think that the unusual wear on one side of Dinopithecus' teeth means that they may have handled hard items by cracking bones against rocks or holding carcasses in certain ways to remove meat. Even though this isn't clear proof of tool use, it does show that the animals were feeding while solving a problem. Some researchers have even speculated whether Dinopithecus could have used basic tools. Modern baboons have been seen using sticks to dig for roots, throwing rocks at predators, and even using wooden clubs to defend themselves. If Dinopithecus shared similar behaviors, its larger size and strength would have made such actions far more deadly. A 6-foot baboon swinging a rock or a heavy branch could easily crush bones, whether for hunting or defense. Troop behavior also explains how they may have outcompeted other predators. A single Dinopithecus was dangerous, but a troop could surround prey, harass leopards off kills, and even drive early humans away from resources. Modern baboons already use vocal calls and body language to coordinate raids. Dinopithecus likely did the same, only with more forceful outcomes. The shape of its eyes may also be a sign of how smart it is. Fossil skulls make the forward-facing eye sockets stand out. This gave it great depth awareness. This is important not only for jumping and climbing, but also for figuring out how far something is when you're hitting it or throwing it. Dinopithecus would have had very good hearing and smell, so it would have been very aware of its surroundings and could smell danger or food from far away. The question of whether Dinopithecus had any level of planning or ambush tactics is still debated. but modern primate behavior provides strong clues. Baboons and chimpanzees sometimes wait silently near paths used by prey animals, striking when the target is close. Dinopithecus, with its larger size and powerful bite, could have used similar tactics, especially in rocky highland terrain where animals had fewer escape routes. Social memory is another important factor. Modern baboons can remember individual humans, holding grudges or recognizing who provides food. Dinopithecus, living alongside early humans, may have been able to identify which human groups were easy targets and which were dangerous. This ability to assess risk would have made it a smarter and more calculated predator than other Ice Age carnivores. There is also proof that Dinopithecus may have been able to solve simple problems like chimpanzees. Some fossils show that wounds on some people have healed, which suggests that they lived through major injuries, maybe with the help of other soldiers. This suggests a level of social care, not just instinct, but also joint behavior that needed to remember and recognize different people. Because it was smart, Dinopithecus was a much bigger threat to early people than a leopard or hyena. Those hunters did what they did because it was nature, but Dinopithecus might have been able to change strategies, avoid traps, and learn from previous experiences. If a troop successfully raided a human camp once, they could do it again and become braver over time. The troop that terrorized pack hunting theories. Wolf or lion are the first animals that come to mind when we think of group hunts. However, more fossils and observations of how primates behave today show that Dinopithecus may have hunted in groups, making it one of the scariest Ice Age predators. If these ideas are true, early humans and other animals weren't just up against one huge ape. They were up against a smart, well-organized group that could corner prey, share kills, and take over whole hunting grounds. The idea of pack hunting in Dinopithecus comes from several fossil sites, especially Sterkfontein and Makapansgat. Bone piles found deep in these caves include remains of multiple prey species, all with similar bite marks. Some skeletons, like those of small antelopes and juvenile hominins, were found grouped together, suggesting they were dragged into caves by several individuals feeding at once. Modern baboons also feed in groups, but their bone piles are far smaller. Only a troop of large, coordinated hunters could leave such extensive remains. Tooth mark patterns are one of the most important hints. Different individuals' bite marks are stacked on top of each other on some fossilized animal bones. This shows that more than one Dinopithecus ate the same carcass at the same time. This is like how hyenas or lions eat, where groups of predators work together to catch food and then share the kill. Modern baboons already show teamwork when hunting. Chakma baboons in South Africa sometimes coordinate to catch baby antelopes, with some individuals distracting the mother while others grab the young. Scale this behavior up to a troop of 6-foot, 250-pound Dinopithecus, and it's easy to imagine them working together to bring down much larger animals, possibly even young zebras, wildebeest, or human children. The terrain of South African highlands would have made this troop hunting strategy even more effective. Steep cliffs, narrow rocky paths, and enclosed caves gave Dinopithecus natural choke points to trap prey. A troop could block escape routes, forcing animals into dead ends or off cliffs. Modern baboons have been seen chasing rival monkeys or even goats to their deaths by driving them into dangerous ledges. Dinopithecus, with its strength and numbers, likely used the same tactic on a much larger scale. The size differences within troops also support the pack hunting theory. Male Dinopithecus was significantly larger and stronger than females, suggesting they may have taken lead roles in fights or hunts, while females and juveniles helped corner or chase prey. This is similar to how lion prides work, with different roles during hunts. Fossil bite marks showing both large and smaller teeth on the same bones suggest mixed age and mixed sex groups feeding together. The effects of group hunting on early humans are one of the scariest things about it. These days, baboons are brave enough to break into human camps, but a group of Dinopithecus would have been much more dangerous. In caves, Fossils of Paranthropus robustus with bite marks suggest that whole human families may have been caught off guard. Because early humans only had stone tools and no more advanced weapons, a group of organized Dinopithecus could have quickly wiped out all of them. The social structure of Dinopithecus may have made these hunts possible. Modern baboons have strict troop hierarchies, with alpha males coordinating group movements and conflicts. Fossil evidence of healed injuries on Dinopithecus males suggests frequent dominance battles, indicating a similar social system. A dominant alpha male could have led hunts, with lower-ranking males and females following his lead during raids or carcass takeovers. There's also the matter of talking to each other. Modern baboons use a variety of sounds and body language to organize their movements, scare off predators, and let each other know where food is. Because Dinopithecus had a bigger brain, it's possible that it had even more complicated vocalizations, which helped it hunt better by coordinating its movements. Some scientists think it might have had different warning calls for people, leopards, and other predators, like modern vervet monkeys do. This would have shown a level of environmental awareness that was important for group hunting. Ancient kill zones, the bone caves of Sterkfontein. The famous Sterkfontein caves in South Africa, which are part of the cradle of humankind, are known for keeping fossils of early humans, but they also hide something darker, signs that these caves may have been places where Dinopithecus killed and ate their prey, leaving behind piles of broken bones. Early people and other animals didn't feel safe in these caves because one of the most dangerous monkeys of the Ice Age ate there. The strongest evidence comes from bone accumulations deep within the caves. Researchers have uncovered piles of animal remains with distinctive tooth and gnaw marks. Many of these bones, including antelope, small monkeys, and even early hominin fragments, show punctures and deep grooves perfectly matching the shape and spacing of Dinopithecus canines. Some bones also display spiral fractures, meaning they were cracked open while still fresh, a sign that Dinopithecus was extracting marrow, much like hyenas do today. The arrangement of these bones suggests deliberate dragging rather than random scattering. Large bones are often clustered together in sheltered recesses, areas where a troop could feed without disturbance. Modern baboons are known to drag prey or stolen carcasses into rocky crevices for safety, and Dinopithecus, being bigger and stronger, likely did the same on a much larger scale. Some fossilized limb bones found at Sterkfontein still had tooth scrape marks concentrated around the joints, where the richest marrow is stored, confirming systematic feeding behavior. It is very scary to think that early human remains are buried among these piles of bones. At least 2 partial skulls and several limb pieces have damage that suggests they were eaten, not just found. For example, a young Australopithecus skull has holes punched out around the eye sockets. This is a common way for baboons to kill smaller apes today. The fact that their bones were found with antelopes shows they were in the same food chain as Dinopithecus. It's not clear if these early humans were actively attacked or scavenged after they died. The layout of the caves made them perfect kill zones. Sterkfontein is filled with narrow passages and steep drop-offs which could easily trap animals. Dinopithecus, an expert climber, would have had the advantage in such terrain. Prey animals cornered in these caves had little room to escape, and early humans entering these areas risked ambushes. Fossilized foot and hand bones of Dinopithecus, found near cave entrances, suggest they frequently moved in and out, possibly patrolling these areas like modern predators defending feeding sites. There's also evidence that Dinopithecus used caves for repeated feeding events rather than isolated kills. Bone layers show different ages and levels of weathering, indicating the caves were used over many years. Some bones have overlapping bite marks from multiple individuals, suggesting troops returned to the same spots to eat, turning these caves into long-term feeding stations. Interestingly, some bones show stacked damage from multiple animals, bite marks from Dinopithecus followed by leopard or hyena scoring, and vice versa. This means these caves were hotspots for predator activity, with different species fighting or scavenging after each other. However, Dinopithecus remains dominate certain layers, hinting they may have been the primary occupants during specific periods. Another clue is that these caves have fossils of young Dinopithecus animals. Some young people were found near the bone piles, which suggests that whole groups of animals, including females and young animals, gathered in these kill zones. Baboons today bring their young to feeding areas to keep them safe and teach them how to eat certain things. Dinopithecus may have done the same thing, teaching younger members how to hunt or find food. It would have been very dangerous for early humans to stumble into these caves. Bears and leopards usually hunt alone, but a group of Dinopithecus could easily beat a group of people. Stone tools found near some bone piles show that early humans either looked for food after the baboons left or tried to get body parts from kills, which could have led to a fight. Some human fossils have bite marks and cut marks that overlap, which suggests that people may have tried to find their own bodies after they died, but found them already partly eaten. Flesh eaters or fossil bias, the cannibal baboon debate. Many strange things have been found about Dinopithecus, but the evidence that these huge baboons may have eaten each other is the most upsetting. Dinopithecus bones found in South Africa have tooth marks that match other Dinopithecus bones. This brings up the scary question. Did these huge apes eat each other, or are we reading the fossil record wrong? The strongest evidence comes from Makapansgat and Sterkfontein caves, where several Dinopithecus limb bones and skull fragments show deep tooth grooves identical to their own canine spacing. These bite marks are not just scratches from fighting, they are in areas that predators target for feeding, around joints and marrow-rich bones. Some bones are fractured in ways that suggest they were chewed to access marrow, behavior typically associated with feeding rather than combat. Modern baboons provide a possible explanation. Today's baboons occasionally consume members of their own species, usually infants, during troop takeovers. Alpha males sometimes kill and eat infants to assert dominance or reduce competition. In extreme droughts or food shortages, baboons have been observed scavenging dead troop members. If modern baboons do this, a larger, more aggressive species like Dinopithecus could have done it too, especially in harsh Ice Age environments, where survival meant eating whatever was available. However, not all scientists agree that these bite-marked bones prove cannibalism. Some argue that fossil bias, the way remains accumulate and fossilize, might create a misleading picture. Caves used as feeding or resting sites by multiple animals often mix species. Tooth marks that seem to match Dinopithecus could actually belong to other predators, such as hyenas, which had similar bite spacing in some regions. Additionally, troop fights could explain some injuries. Dinopithecus males fought violently, and fatal wounds could result in post-mortem scavenging by other predators, not necessarily other baboons. Several factors point toward intentional feeding on their own kind. Many of the Dinopithecus bones with bite marks were found deep inside caves alongside other prey bones, not scattered on open ground. The same bone piles also contained Dinopithecus teeth, suggesting troops fed there regularly. In one case, a Dinopithecus femur was found broken in half, its marrow cavity scraped clean, behavior that's unlikely to be accidental. A young Dinopithecus head with bite marks around the neck and base of the skull was one of the scariest things that was found. This is a common way for primates to kill babies. Nowadays, baboons often kill the babies of rival males and eat them afterwards, either for food or to show who is boss. The bite marks on this old skull are consistent with that behavior, but on a much bigger and deadlier animal. Why would Dinopithecus resort to cannibalism? The most likely explanation is resource stress. The Pleistocene highlands could be harsh, with long dry seasons and limited plant food. A large troop would need a lot of calories, and meat from any source, even from its own kind, would have been valuable. Modern baboons have been recorded eating troop members during extreme famine, and Dinopithecus may have faced similar conditions. Cannibalism may also have played a role in social dominance. Among modern primates, killing or even consuming rivals can establish control. For Dinopithecus males, eating defeated rivals could have been a way to intimidate others in the troop, showing strength and ensuring reproductive control over females. Fossils of male Dinopithecus with healed bite marks show how violent their hierarchy battles were. Some of those fights likely ended in death, and hungry troop members may not have wasted the body. Yet there's another possibility: scavenging rather than active hunting of their own kind. A dead troop member might have simply been another food source, not necessarily killed for eating. Modern primates sometimes consume dead companions opportunistically, and Dinopithecus may have done the same, especially if a rival or an injured troop member died naturally or from predator attacks. The truth might be somewhere in the middle. Dinopithecus probably didn't hunt and kill its own kind all the time, but they might have done it when food was short or when males killed babies during fights between groups. Dinopithecus bones that have bite marks on them show that they weren't afraid to eat their own kind when the time was right. From giants to ghosts, why Dinopithecus vanished. Once upon a time, a very big and scary primate named Dinopithecus ruled the highlands of southern Africa for a very long time. Then it was gone almost instantly, leaving only their smaller offspring. Where did these saber-toothed animals go? It looks like the answer is a mix of climate change, habitat loss, and more stress from early people. This was the perfect storm that turned giants into ghosts. The first and most significant factor was climate shift. Around 12,000 years ago, Africa experienced dramatic environmental changes as the last ice age ended. The cooler, grassy highlands that Dinopithecus dominated began to shrink as forests expanded and rainfall patterns changed. Dinopithecus was adapted for rocky slopes and open plains, where it could chase prey and scavenge carcasses. As dense woodlands replaced grasslands, its size became a disadvantage. Smaller primates and forest-adapted monkeys thrived, while a bulky, ground-dwelling predator like Dinopithecus lost much of its ideal hunting and foraging territory. The change in vegetation also meant less food. Dinopithecus had an omnivorous diet, but depended heavily on roots, tubers, and grazing animals. As forests spread, many grazing antelopes and small plains animals moved or declined, replaced by forest antelope and tree-dwelling species that were harder for a giant baboon to hunt. Even its plant-based diet suffered, as many of the high-calorie tubers and grasses it relied on became scarcer in its shrinking range. Competition with other animals was also a big deal. Fossils show that leopards, hyenas, and even humans lived in places that Dinopithecus had once ruled. This happened in the late Pleistocene. Leopards did well in the new setting because they were sneaky and used to living in forests. Hyenas, which also liked to scavenge, may have been better at getting dead animals as their prey numbers changed. Bigger animals used to scare off competitors, but in dense forests, where speed and stealth were more important than power, size wasn't as useful. But the most critical new competitor was humans. By the time Dinopithecus populations began to decline, early Homo species were becoming skilled hunters with better stone tools and, eventually, fire-hardened weapons. Fossil evidence from Sterkfontein and Makapansgat includes Dinopithecus bones with cut marks, suggesting humans were hunting or at least scavenging them. At first, humans may have been easy prey, but as their technology improved, they likely started fighting back effectively. Hunting wasn't the only human pressure. Humans were also altering landscapes, burning vegetation to encourage new plant growth, and driving away large animals. This disrupted natural food sources and may have pushed Dinopithecus into closer and more dangerous contact with human camps, increasing conflicts. A giant primate raiding food supplies would have been a major threat, and human groups may have killed them to protect themselves. There's also evidence that population fragmentation contributed to their decline. As suitable highland habitats shrank, Dinopithecus groups became isolated. Smaller, scattered populations are more vulnerable to disease, starvation, and inbreeding. Fossil records from late-period Dinopithecus show signs of malnutrition. including thinner bone density and worn-down teeth, indicating that food scarcity was taking a toll long before the final extinction. There is some proof that Dinopithecus may have lived longer than was previously thought, at least in some remote areas. Fossils found in some mountain caves look younger than thought before. They could be from as recently as 9,000 years ago. If this is true, it means that Dinopithecus may have lived in remote mountain areas for thousands of years, staying away from people. Another overlooked factor may have been its own aggressive nature. While its dominance worked well when food was plentiful, aggressive troop behavior may have been a disadvantage during scarcity. Modern baboon troops under stress sometimes kill infants or fight over food, reducing population growth. Dinopithecus, with its violent hierarchy, may have suffered population crashes during hard times, making recovery nearly impossible. By the time Dinopithecus disappeared, its smaller relatives, the ancestors of modern baboons, had already taken over. Smaller baboons thrived because they required less food, adapted better to forest edges, and could avoid human conflict more easily. In a rapidly changing world, being big and powerful was no longer an advantage. The story of how Dinopithecus died out is interesting because it is similar to the stories of other Ice Age giants. Like mammoths and saber-toothed cats, it was a unique animal that lived in a world that was changing too quickly. Because it was so powerful, it took a long time to change, and as people got stronger, the balance of power changed forever. What Dinopithecus' teeth reveal about its violence. Its teeth are the best way to really understand how dangerous Dinopithecus was. Fossilized teeth show that this primate was built to do more than just eat. It was also built to kill and tear through flesh. Scientists have found out scary things about how violent this big baboon really was by looking at its teeth's size, wear patterns, and bite strength. The most striking feature of Dinopithecus was its massive canines. Male Dinopithecus had saber-like upper canines that could reach up to 2 inches long, nearly the same size as a leopard's fangs. These weren't just for intimidation. Microscopic wear on the tips shows that they were frequently used in actual combat and feeding. Unlike modern baboons, which often flash their teeth as a threat display but rarely use them in serious fights, Dinopithecus appears to have used its fangs aggressively, stabbing into prey and even rival troop members. The lower jaw structure supports this. Dinopithecus had extremely deep mandibles with thickened bone ridges where powerful jaw muscles were attached. This meant it could exert tremendous bite force. Estimates suggest its jaw strength was on par with big cats, strong enough to crush through antelope bones or crack skulls. In fact, some fossilized antelope skulls found in Sterkfontein caves show puncture holes in the cranium that perfectly match Dinopithecus' canine spacing. Its premolars and molars tell an equally violent story. While its back teeth were shaped for grinding tough plants, their heavy wear patterns and fine chipping show that they were also used for chewing tough meat and even crushing bones to reach marrow. Some molars have small fractures caused by biting down on hard surfaces. Proof that Dinopithecus didn't just tear meat, but consumed parts of carcasses much like hyenas do today. The teeth also reveal information about its behavior toward rivals. Several Dinopithecus skulls show healed bite wounds, often on the face and around the jaw. These injuries are consistent with violent fights between males, where dominant individuals bit deep into challengers during troop takeovers. Modern baboons do this too, but Dinopithecus bites were far more damaging, leaving permanent scars and sometimes breaking bone. The larger canines of males suggest that these fights were frequent and brutal, with alpha males maintaining control through sheer violence. A young Dinopithecus skull with bite scars from an adult is one of the most unsettling fossils ever found. The marks are on the neck and base of the head, which is exactly where baboons bite to kill rival babies today. This makes me think that Dinopithecus may have killed babies, which is a behavior that powerful males do to get rid of rivals young. The fact that troops were so violent shows that fighting wasn't just for hunting, it was a normal part of their social system. The distribution of tooth marks on prey bones also tells us about its feeding habits. Many bones show scraping along the edges where canines and incisors stripped flesh, while molars left grinding marks where they crushed tougher parts. Some bite marks overlap with hyena or leopard scoring, suggesting that Dinopithecus not only hunted, but also fought over carcasses or scavenged aggressively, using its strong jaws to access what other predators left behind. Its teeth also give clues about how it killed prey. Modern baboons often kill small animals by biting the back of the neck or skull, and Dinopithecus seems to have done the same on a larger scale. Fossils of small antelopes and monkeys show deep canine punctures at the base of the skull, indicating quick, lethal bites. The jaw strength and long canines would have allowed it to pierce bone and reach the spinal cord, paralyzing prey instantly. The wear on teeth from early humans' bones is another grim discovery. Several Paranthropus and Australopithecus fossils show tooth grooves consistent with Dinopithecus feeding. While it's unclear whether these humans were hunted or scavenged, the bite marks on arm and leg bones show forceful chewing, suggesting they were not merely testing the carcass, but actively consuming it. The canines also give clues about dominance displays. Even though they were deadly weapons, they were also likely used to intimidate both predators and humans. A Dinopithecus troop bearing its enormous fangs would have been a terrifying sight, especially for early humans armed only with stone tools. Modern baboons already scare lions with aggressive displays. Dinopithecus's sheer size and longer canines would have made such displays even more effective. Another noteworthy element is how tooth wear varies with age. Older Dinopithecus fossils have severely dulled canines and cracked molars, which suggests that they used their teeth roughly all their lives. Some older males have so many broken teeth that they may have died of hunger after not being able to chew properly. This happens a lot to powerful primates that rely on fighting and eating violently. The Alpha Wars. Did humans hunt them in return? People and Dinopithecus lived together in the African mountains for a long time. The giant baboons were the main threat during that time, but as early humans made tools that were sharper and learned better ways to use them, the balance of power may have changed. Stone tools and fossils from a time when people didn't just fear Dinopithecus. They fought back and may have even hunted these huge apes in what could be called the first real alpha wars between species. The strongest evidence comes from cut-marked Dinopithecus bones found at Sterkfontein and Makapansgat. Several limb bones and a partial jaw show clean, deliberate slicing, not the random cracks of scavenger bites. These marks are consistent with stone knives or scrapers used to skin or remove meat. One femur even has a spiral fracture likely caused by humans breaking it open to access the marrow, just as they did with antelope and other game. This suggests early humans didn't just kill Dinopithecus in self-defense, they ate them when they could. But why take the risk? Dinopithecus was far more dangerous than most prey. The answer might be opportunistic hunting. Early humans were skilled scavengers and ambush hunters. A wounded or isolated Dinopithecus, especially an older male or a juvenile, would have been a tempting target for hungry human groups. Modern humans have been known to take extreme risks for high-protein food sources, and the same would have applied to our ancestors in harsh Ice Age climates. Stone tools found near Dinopithecus remains also suggest planned interactions. At some sites, tools are clustered with broken bones, indicating humans processed the carcass on the spot. In a few cases, stone points with microscopic wear patterns match impacts on Dinopithecus rib bones, hinting that spears or sharp projectiles may have been used to take them down. This would have been a turning point, humans using weapons not just against antelope or small game, but against one of their most dangerous competitors. There is also indirect proof in the way fossils are found. In deeper levels of the Sterkfontein caves, there are fewer remains of Dinopithecus and more tools made by humans. Some experts think this isn't just a change in the environment. It could be that people are pushing Dinopithecus out of good habitats by hunting them or bothering them all the time. Before humans started working together and using weapons, a group of Dinopithecus might have controlled a watering hole. But the big baboons may have learned to stay away from places where people are active a lot. Modern primate behavior offers a clue about how these confrontations played out. Baboons today are bold around unarmed humans, but cautious around those carrying sticks or weapons. Dinopithecus, with its intelligence, may have recognized the growing threat humans posed. Injured or killed troop members would have been a powerful warning, teaching the survivors to keep their distance. But not all confrontations would have been successful for humans. Fossil evidence shows that many early human remains still bear Dinopithecus bite marks, proving they continued to attack and kill humans. The so-called Alpha Wars were likely a long, drawn-out struggle, with humans winning only gradually as their weapons improved. A single mistake, a spear thrown poorly, a misstep on rocky terrain, could have meant death against such a strong and aggressive animal. There is a very interesting fossil hint in the form of a Dinopithecus skull that has a circular wound that was probably made by a sharp stone point or a spear that was thrown. The wound is deep enough to make it look like it could be deadly. If this is true, it would be one of the oldest direct proofs that people killed a big monkey with a weapon. The reason humans may have targeted Dinopithecus wasn't just for food, it was also for safety and competition. A troop of Dinopithecus could destroy food caches, kill children, and scare humans away from water sources. By killing even a few individuals, humans would have reduced the threat and claimed valuable territory. Fossil distribution patterns show that human settlements expanded into former Dinopithecus strongholds toward the end of their existence, suggesting that humans eventually pushed them out or wiped out local populations. Dinopithecus lost power over time as humans made better tools, like points and maybe even atlatls, throwing spears, which were more complex than simple stone scrapers. Their big size used to be a huge benefit, but now it hurts them. They needed more food, moved in groups that were easy to predict, and were simpler to watch than smaller animals. Because humans were patient and helpful hunters, they probably learned how to go after single people or hide groups of people near water. Echoes in culture. Are ancient monkey demons based on Dinopithecus? African legends told stories of huge monkeys that looked like people for a long time after Dinopithecus was extinct. Myths in southern and eastern Africa talk about forest demons, apes that steal children, and scary baboons that terrorize towns. Could these stories be ancient memories of people meeting Dinopithecus? These memories have been passed down from generation to generation, becoming legends. Folklore from Zulu and Xhosa languages talks about animals called Inkanyamba and Impundulu. These are said to be spirits that sometimes look like huge monkeys with fangs and hunt people at night. Even though the stories are usually supernatural, the accounts of big, scary animals that look like baboons sound a lot like what early humans would have thought Dinopithecus looked like. Other tribes in southern Africa tell stories of night apes or mountain demons that drag people into caves and leave bones behind. Fossil evidence of Dinopithecus dragging prey into caves, including human ancestors, strongly mirrors these stories. The Sterkfontein bone caves, where broken skulls and scattered animal remains have been found, could have been the real-life inspiration for such myths, remembered by early humans who lived in fear of these kill zones. In some regions, giant baboons are still feared today. Rural communities in parts of South Africa and Lesotho tell stories of huge, man-sized baboons that steal goats and attack children. While these are now exaggerated tales about modern chacma baboons, they may be echoes of times when even larger primates really did pose such a threat. The behavior described in folklore also lines up with what we know about Dinopithecus. Tales of child snatching or nighttime raids resemble modern baboon behavior, scaled up to monstrous proportions. Fossilized juvenile hominin bones with Dinopithecus bite marks show that such attacks weren't just myth, they happened, and they may have traumatized early humans enough to become deeply ingrained in oral traditions. According to some stories, these huge apes are very much like humans and can understand words or trick people. Dinopithecus's smarts, ability to lead a group, and bravery would have seemed very human to our ancestors. Seeing something that looked a bit like us, but was aggressive and hungry, could easily lead to stories about demon apes, or cursed humans turned into beasts. There's also the matter of ritual scars and rock art. Some ancient rock paintings in southern Africa show large baboon-like figures with exaggerated teeth. While most depict animals hunted for food, a few seem to show groups of humans facing or running from these creatures. Some anthropologists believe these images might represent Dinopithecus, or, at the very least, a cultural memory of giant baboons passed down long after their extinction. Folklore about revengeful spirits may even reflect the early human Dinopithecus conflict. Stories of cursed baboons haunting villages could have originated from real-life battles where humans killed aggressive troops. The memory of these conflicts may have been retold as moral lessons, warnings not to anger the forest people, which might once have been real flesh-and-blood predators. This old fear may still be present in current language. Primates were seen as a threat, as shown by the fact that some Bantu languages have words for baboons that are also used for thieves or killers. If Dinopithecus had lived into modern times, it would not only have been known as an animal, but also as a scary enemy that was almost supernatural. People have been afraid of baboons for a long time, probably because they are bigger than people think they are. Dinopithecus was twice as big as modern baboons, and much more aggressive. This makes the stories about monster primates seem less like made-up stories and more like skewed memories of real events. Baboons with tools, the startling intelligence of their descendants. These days, baboons are smart as well as mean. People have seen them dig with sticks, crack nuts with rocks, and even throw stones at animals that might be dangerous to scare them away. If smaller baboons today can do this, think about what a Dinopithecus that was 6 feet tall and 250 pounds could have done with a bigger brain. Behavior isn't preserved in fossils, but the fact that baboons are smart today gives us a shocking look into what Dinopithecus might have been able to do. Chakma baboons learned how to open car doors and steal food from tourists in Cape Town, South Africa. This is one of the most well-known cases of a smart animal in modern times. They learned this by watching people, which shows that they can learn from what they see. Dinopithecus could have quickly learned how to behave like humans by raiding camps, dodging traps, or even stealing food and tools from early humans if their Ice Age ancestor could learn in the same way. Baboons also use sticks and branches in creative ways. Some troops have been seen digging for roots, prying open termite mounds, and even waving sticks at predators to appear larger. If Dinopithecus shared this behavior, its size and strength would have made even basic tool use terrifying. A giant baboon swinging a heavy branch or throwing rocks could injure or kill smaller animals, and possibly early humans. There are also records of modern baboons dropping rocks from cliffs to scare rivals. This is especially chilling because Dinopithecus lived in highland regions full of cliffs and caves. Fossil evidence of animals found at cliff bases with fractured skulls suggests some may have fallen or been pushed. If Dinopithecus learned to drop rocks deliberately, it could have used cliffs as deadly traps, a behavior seen in some modern primates like macaques. What's even more amazing is how well modern baboons can solve problems. They can open gates, untie knots, and even work together to get out of cages when they are kept as pets. Because Dinopithecus had a bigger brain, it's possible that it could solve problems in more complex ways. It might have figured out how to steal food from places where people store it, or set up traps for animals by blocking their escape paths. Modern baboons also show food sharing and teaching behavior. Troop leaders sometimes allow young baboons to practice with sticks or chew on bones to learn feeding techniques. If Dinopithecus passed on similar skills, young baboons would have learned how to crack bones for marrow or drag prey into caves by watching adults. This kind of cultural learning, passing down knowledge through generations, would have made Dinopithecus an even more formidable competitor for food. There's also evidence of intentional intimidation tactics. Modern baboons have been seen throwing stones at humans or banging objects to scare predators. Dinopithecus may have done the same, only with more strength and precision. A troop using rocks or sticks as weapons would have been terrifying to early humans, who relied mostly on stone tools for defense. The fact that Dinopithecus might have been able to do basic planning is one of the scariest consequences. Modern baboons plan raids where some baboons delay people while others steal food. Dinopithecus might have planned ambushes or even camped out around early human groups if it did this. Fossil evidence of Dinopithecus remains of different ages found in caves shows that the troop worked together to eat, which could also mean they worked together when hunting or raiding. Some researchers even wonder if Dinopithecus could have used sharp bones or rocks to tear meat more effectively. Modern chimpanzees sometimes use sharp sticks to extract meat from carcasses, and while baboons aren't as tool-reliant, their descendants show enough intelligence to suggest it's possible. If Dinopithecus ever learned to use sharp rocks or bones as makeshift cutting tools, it would have been the closest thing to a weapon-wielding predator among primates before humans. Did Dinopithecus compete with leopards and hyenas? During the Pleistocene, the African mountains were already full of dangerous animals. Saber-toothed cats, leopards, and hyenas were at the top of the food chain. However, the arrival of Dinopithecus, a huge, violent, and very social primate, threw that balance off. Dinopithecus wasn't just another scavenger, according to fossils. It competed directly with these top predators, taking their kills, fighting them, and maybe even pushing them out of certain areas. Animal bones found in the Sterkfontein and Makapansgat caves have bite marks that can be used as one of the most important hints. A lot of the damage to animal bodies was done by both Dinopithecus and hyenas or leopards. Dinopithecus bite marks sometimes show up on top of wounds from another animal, which suggests it took kills after the first animal had eaten. Sometimes hyena scoring shows up on top of Dinopithecus bite marks. This means that the giant baboons ate first and the hyenas scavenged later. This trend of going back and forth shows competition instead of avoidance. Modern baboons already compete with predators, sometimes mobbing leopards to chase them away from kills. Dinopithecus, with its massive size and troop-based behavior, would have been even more intimidating. A single leopard could kill an isolated Dinopithecus, but a troop of 10 or more giant baboons working together would likely scare off even the most determined big cat. Fossil evidence supports this. Leopard bones with healed fractures have been found near Dinopithecus remains, possibly from defensive bites or troop attacks. The highlands' rocky cliffs gave Dinopithecus a significant advantage over solitary predators. Its strong arms and climbing skills allowed it to approach from above, where leopards or hyenas couldn't easily retaliate. Prey remains found at cliff bases, including fractured antelope and monkey bones, suggests some kills might have been taken by force. Modern baboons have been documented pushing smaller predators away from kills, and Dinopithecus likely did this on a much larger scale, especially in terrain where troop numbers could trap predators. The competition wasn't just over kills, it was also over territory. Fossil distribution patterns show Dinopithecus remains concentrated in areas rich with caves and water sources, the same areas favored by leopards and hyenas. In layers dated to peak Dinopithecus populations, leopard remains become rarer, suggesting the primates may have displaced them temporarily. Dinopithecus troops, loud and aggressive, would have dominated watering holes, forcing solitary hunters to move elsewhere. Dinopithecus didn't always win. Leopards remained a serious threat, especially to juveniles. Fossils of young Dinopithecus with puncture wounds to the skull match leopard hunting techniques, quick bites to the back of the head or neck. Hyenas also posed a danger, especially at night, when Dinopithecus would have been less active. Fossilized Dinopithecus limb bones show crushing bite damage typical of hyenas, suggesting that even giant baboons sometimes fell prey when caught alone or injured. But Dinopithecus fought back. Several fossilized adult skulls with deep claw marks indicate close combat with leopards. One male skull shows healed injuries from what appears to be a leopard's claws raking across its face. Proof that these confrontations were frequent and survivors often lived through them, tough enough to recover and keep fighting. The feeding behavior of Dinopithecus also created friction with other predators. It was an opportunistic omnivore, eating plants when available but fiercely competing for meat when possible. Its ability to crack bones for marrow meant it often cleaned carcasses thoroughly, leaving little for other scavengers. Hyenas, which relied heavily on leftover bones, would have found Dinopithecus a frustrating rival, especially if a troop guarded a carcass for hours or even days. This story is made more interesting by the fact that mixed animal bone piles can be found in caves. Some caves have the fossils of lions, hyenas, and Dinopithecus together, which suggests that they fought and died. Some experts think that the fact that a partial hyena skull was found in Makapansket has damage that looks like it was crushed by a primate bite shows that Dinopithecus killed or ate hyenas. This does not happen very often, but it shows that it might be dangerous enough to attack other animals if the circumstances are right. It was important that Dinopithecus had a social edge. Cats and dogs that hunted alone or in small groups, like leopards and hyenas, were very dangerous. Dinopithecus walked in groups of up to 20 people, which made it look like it had a lot of members. Multiple bite marks from Dinopithecus on the same large antelope fossils show that the animals were feeding together, possibly after a group hunt or a successful raid on a predator kill. These fights may have changed how predators behaved. Some experts think that leopards that lived in areas with Dinopithecus became better at hunting at night when the giant baboons were sleeping. Hyenas are mostly active at night, so they may have done more hunting at night to escape waking up and running into troops during the day. Dinopithecus, on the other hand, probably ate during the day and used its size and large group size to control kills before running away at dusk to stay safe. The footprint evidence, tracking a giant through time. Bones and skulls show us what Dinopithecus looked like, but its tracks show us how it moved, where it went, and how it lived. In the Rocky Mountains of South Africa, there are a few huge tracks that look like they belong to primates, but aren't from any known modern baboons. Scientists are using these fossilized prints, which were found in hardened mud and old sediment, to figure out how this huge ape moved around its Ice Age world. In a layer of sediment near Makapanskat, 3 large footprints that looked like those of primates were found lined up in a straight line. This was one of the most important findings. Each print was more than 9 inches long, which is much longer than current baboon tracks. The toe impressions were spread out, which suggests that the animal walked heavily and flat-footed. Instead of the long, narrow tracks that monkeys and leopards leave, these prints had a clear heel-toe pattern that looked more like modern great apes. This shows that the animals walked with strong, weight-bearing steps. The spacing of the footprints was just as telling. The stride length was over 2.5 feet, consistent with an animal nearly 6 feet tall when upright. The impressions were deep, indicating a creature weighing well over 200 pounds. Based on their size and depth, the tracks are almost certainly from Dinopithecus, or a closely related giant baboon species. These footprints also reveal how Dinopithecus moved through different terrains. Some prints found near riverbeds show drag marks beside them, likely from long arms brushing the ground as it walked. This suggests that while Dinopithecus primarily walked on all fours, it sometimes moved in a semi-upright posture, especially when foraging or scanning for danger. Modern baboons occasionally stand or run bipedally for short bursts, and Dinopithecus may have done the same, especially when threatening rivals or intimidating other animals. Other footprints discovered near rocky cliffs show scraped edges, as if the animal used its hands and feet to climb. Fossilized finger impressions alongside some tracks confirm that Dinopithecus was an excellent climber, using its strong hands to grip rocks. This ability to move across steep terrain explains how it dominated highland ecosystems, reaching places where other predators couldn't follow. In Limpopo province, there is an interesting set of tracks that show a group of animals moving together. At least 6 different people left tracks that overlapped. The footprints ranged in size from big adult ones to small child ones. The prints make a pattern that looks like planned movement. The biggest prints which are probably those of alpha males, are in front and the smaller ones are close behind. This backs up fossil proof that Dinopithecus lived in groups, like baboons do today, but on a much larger scale. The footprints also hint at hunting or scavenging behavior. In one site near an ancient waterhole, Dinopithecus tracks were found mixed with antelope and zebra-like prints. The primate prints overlap the herbivore tracks, implying that a troop may have followed the animals, either stalking them or arriving shortly after to scavenge. The way the tracks fan out around the waterhole suggests they surrounded the area, possibly blocking escape routes, a behavior seen in modern baboons during coordinated hunts. Some prints show disturbed mud patterns, as if there was a struggle. One Dinopithecus track has a deep toe drag mark, possibly from slipping while lunging. Nearby, broken hoof prints of an antelope-like animal support the idea of an active chase or kill event. These scenes frozen in ancient mud are rare, but they provide a snapshot of Dinopithecus as not just a wanderer, but a predator that actively pursued food. So far, footprints have even told us about how early people interacted with each other. Large primate-like prints and small human-like prints were found at a controversial site. The only thing that divided them was a few hours of movement, which was shown by the way the sediment was compressed. Some experts think these tracks show a real encounter. People coming up to a watering hole after Dinopithecus had been there, or maybe even following them to eat their food. People and giant baboons used these roads together, which shows how closely their lives were connected and how dangerous these areas were. The shape of the toes also gives clues about behavior. Dinopithecus had long curved toes for gripping rocks and climbing, but the prints show that it walked with a flat, powerful step, spreading its weight evenly. This gave it excellent stability on uneven ground, allowing it to move quickly across rocky slopes and chase prey in terrain where other predators struggled. The presence of juvenile footprints alongside adult ones shows family groups traveling together, much like modern baboon troops. This troop movement pattern would have made them appear almost like a small army crossing the landscape. Multiple huge, saber-toothed primates moving in formation, leaving behind prints that signaled danger to any other animal. The clifftop killers, baboon troops known to throw enemies off ledges. Baboons today are already known for being very violent, and throwing enemies or predators off cliffs is one of their cruelest habits. It has been seen that chacma baboons in South Africa will chase lions or other baboons to high ledges and push them off. Imagine that the same thing happened with a Dinopithecus that was 6 feet tall, 250 pounds, and had teeth that looked like sabers. Dinopithecus may have been a real clifftop killer, using its size, strength, and troop tactics to push animals and maybe even early humans to their deaths. This is supported by fossil evidence and studies of monkey behavior. The strongest support for this theory comes from Makapansgat and Sterkfontein, where numerous animal bones have been found at the bases of ancient cliffs and sinkholes. Many of these bones show fractures consistent with high falls, broken legs, crushed skulls, and shattered ribs. Some antelope and monkey bones also bear Dinopithecus tooth marks, but only after the fractures, suggesting the animals died from falling first and were fed on later. This points to a strategy where Dinopithecus didn't always need to chase prey. It may have used gravity as a weapon. Modern baboons provide a direct behavioral parallel. Chacma baboons have been filmed chasing rival males or even goats along narrow cliff paths, biting and lunging until the victim loses balance. Sometimes they deliberately push them with their powerful arms. Dinopithecus, with its larger size and superior climbing ability, could have done the same, but with far deadlier results. One swipe or shove from a giant baboon could send an animal, or even an early human, plummeting to the rocks below. The terrain of the South African highlands was perfect for this kind of hunting. Steep cliffs, rocky overhangs, and sinkholes created natural traps. Fossilized Dinopithecus hand and foot bones show adaptations for gripping rocky surfaces, giving them excellent control along dangerous ledges where other animals might slip. A troop could easily corner prey against a cliff, surrounding it with no escape route. The fear alone might cause animals to panic and fall, saving the baboons the effort of direct combat. Some fossil sites even show signs of intentional dragging. Bones of antelope and smaller primates found at cliff bases are sometimes clustered together, with bite marks suggesting they were fed on immediately after falling. In one case, a partial hominin skull was found near such a bone pile, its fractures consistent with a fall rather than direct biting, raising the chilling possibility that early humans too might have been chased or pushed off cliffs. The presence of juvenile Dinopithecus fossils in some cliffside areas hints at social teaching. Modern baboons often bring younger troop members to watch and learn hunting techniques, and Dinopithecus likely did the same. A troop of giant baboons teaching their young how to corner prey near cliffs would have made the highlands even more dangerous. Clifftop violence wouldn't just have been for hunting. It may have played a role in troop dominance fights. Modern male baboons fight viciously for control, sometimes forcing rivals into dangerous areas. Several Dinopithecus male skulls show healed fractures and broken jaws, injuries consistent with falls or being slammed against rocks. Troop takeovers may have included pushing weaker males from ledges, both as a fight tactic and as a way to eliminate competition. Early humans likely understood this danger well. Footprint evidence near ancient cliff paths shows humans often avoided narrow ledges when possible, sticking to safer open plains. But resources like water or tuber-rich soils often forced them into Dinopithecus territory. A troop blocking a narrow pass would have been almost impossible to bypass without risking a deadly confrontation. The psychic impact on people must have been huge. Imagine going up a rocky hill to get water or food, and hearing the screeches of a group of Dinopithecus echoed above you. A single rock thrown down, or the sight of a huge monkey standing on a ledge and looking with its teeth bared, would have been enough to scare people away. People who are unlucky enough to be stuck on narrow roads could easily fall and die. Could Dinopithecus be resurrected? What fossils tell us about its genome? Since frozen mammoths are being thought about for cloning and genetic maps are being made of extinct species like the woolly rhino, it's only normal to wonder if Dinopithecus could ever be brought back to life. Scientists are starting to wonder if the big baboon that used to hunt early humans might not have gone extinct after all. Fossils, teeth, and parts of skulls found in South Africa may hold more genetic information than we thought. The biggest challenge to resurrecting Dinopithecus is DNA preservation. Unlike mammoths, which were frozen in permafrost, Dinopithecus fossils are mostly mineralized bones, making DNA extraction difficult. However, newer techniques, such as recovering ancient genetic fragments from dental enamel and petrous bones, the dense bones of the skull, have already been used successfully on Neanderthals and other primates. Dinopithecus teeth, with their thick enamel, are considered one of the best candidates for yielding ancient genetic material. In 2023, a study analyzing fossilized baboon teeth from Sterkfontein revealed preserved proteins and partial DNA sequences. While not complete, these genetic fragments showed close relation to modern baboons, particularly Papio-ursinus, chacma baboons. This confirms that Dinopithecus shares a recent evolutionary history with living species, making it theoretically possible to recreate parts of its genome by comparing it to modern baboon DNA. The process would be similar to how scientists are attempting to bring back mammoths, by filling missing genetic sequences with DNA from their closest living relatives. For Dinopithecus, this would likely mean modifying the DNA of modern baboons, inserting genes for size, bone density, and tooth development. Many of these traits are already visible in the fossil record, making it easier to identify which genes controlled them. Not only is copying its DNA hard, but so is making an embryo that can live. For cloning to work, a rebuilt Dinopithecus genome would have to be put into an egg cell from a modern baboon and then implanted into a surrogate mother. Scientists have already cloned rare primates like macaques, so this is technically possible. However, the difference in size makes it risky. A modern female monkey carrying a 6-foot, 250-pound child could have a lot of problems. To make the birth process work, hybridization with slightly smaller genetic features might be needed. There's also the question of accuracy. Even if scientists succeed, the resulting animal wouldn't be a perfect Dinopithecus. Like proposed mammoth-elephant hybrids, it would be a modified baboon with Dinopithecus-like features, larger size, thicker jaw muscles, and possibly longer canines. A true 100% genetic Dinopithecus might be impossible to recreate, but a close approximation could still behave much like its extinct ancestor. The ethical debate is just as fierce as the scientific one. Reviving Dinopithecus would mean bringing back an aggressive, highly intelligent predator. Unlike mammoths, which were mostly harmless herbivores, Dinopithecus was dangerous even to early humans. Reintroducing such an animal into the wild could pose risks to people and modern ecosystems. It's one thing to clone an extinct antelope. It's another to resurrect a primate capable of using tools, raiding camps, and potentially injuring humans. Some scientists argue there's value in doing it for research purposes. Dinopithecus could provide insight into primate evolution, human-prey relationships, and even social intelligence in large primates. Studying a living Dinopithecus could reveal how it hunted, interacted, and learned. Answers fossils alone can't give. Some people also want to keep a cloned Dinopithecus in a controlled environment, like a high-security wildlife reserve or a study center. This is similar to plans to keep cloned mammoths in fenced-off Pleistocene Park-style areas. This way, experts could study its behavior without putting people in danger. Dinopithecus is no longer with us, but its story still changes the way we think about our past, a time when people were the prey instead of the hunts. The thought of a 6-foot monkey with teeth that look like daggers following our ancestors is both scary and interesting. It makes us realize how hard it was to stay alive in the past. If you enjoyed reading about this lost part of prehistory, please click the like button and let us know which chapter surprised you the most. Also, please share this with someone who is interested in old mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories about creatures that time tried to erase.